Welcome to Dun & Bradstreet's webinar, How You Can Outsell and Outgrow the Competition in Today's Economy. We are delighted today to be joined by our partner and thought leader, Tim Royston-Webb. Tim is Executive Vice President of Strategy at HG Insights and a thought leader on IT spend and propensity modeling. Tim's current focus is redefining the traditional thinking of sales and marketing professionals and educating them on how data can transform traditional processes to drive improved business outcomes. Tim has also held leadership roles at Forrester, Ovum, Global Data, and Data Monitor. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you.
We are also joined by Sean Crowley, Sales and Marketing Leader at Dun & Bradstreet. Sean leads demand generation for sales and marketing solutions line of business at Dun & Bradstreet. His experience working with customers of various sizes across all major industries has confirmed for him that business growth is tied to the strategic use of data and analytics, and that continuous cultivation of good, relevant, and meaningful data delivered at the speed of business helps to accelerate the path from prospect to profitable customer. Quick housekeeping point today. During today's presentation, you can submit questions you may have using the Q&A box on your screen. Our event is scheduled to run for approximately 30 minutes, and we will have time at the end to respond to audience questions we receive. Additionally, a recorded version of this event will be made available and shared with all registrants. And without any further ado, I turn today's event over to Sean. Sean, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks, Kristen. And Tim, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I always like to start with this slide to everybody here. I really appreciate you joining. Let me just say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you're listening to us. And I always think it's important to start with this slide because we view this as kind of an outside-in perspective, and when you think about how customers and businesses try to engage and grow their customer base, there's a consistent method in terms of how customers go to market, and it really depends on engaging the right accounts at the right time across the buyer's journey. And at each engagement point that you have, it's absolutely critical that you have relevancy to who they are and what their specific business situation is and what their role is and what their needs are from a strategic, a functional, and a personal level. And I think it's interesting to note that the overall buying journey hasn't really changed in centuries and millennia, potentially. Actually, there's an awareness of a need. People do research to find solutions. They consider their options. They decide on their decisioning points of what's important to them. They make a purchase, and then whether they like the product or solution or not, they advocate or choose not to advocate for that business. And this has been pretty consistent since the dawn of marketing. But what has changed for B2B businesses in particular today is the amount of technology that surrounds us and what we have available to us to facilitate those engagement points, to deliver greater insights into what's going on within a business and the people who work there. And as a result of that, the amount of data has grown exponentially, right? The volume, velocity, and the variety of data that marketers and sellers now have at their hands is really unprecedented. And it becomes increasingly more challenging for businesses to facilitate the right type of interaction and to actually find those needles in a haystack. And Tim's going to talk a little bit about this in a little bit. But I think there are four key components that you think about. There's how do I analyze and identify the right markets and the right accounts that present the best opportunities for my business? And then once I've identified that, how do I target them consistently across the different channels that I have available to me? So there's a consistent customer experience and a brand experience that is relevant to those individuals. And then once I get those hand raisers, how do I engage and nurture the conversation so that I can deliver higher quality leads to my sales team and empower them to make the decision on when to reach out and how to get in front of the competitors in terms of that engagement. And so it's within this context of this go-to-market strategy that we're going to talk today about the importance of intent and fit for your business. But there's one other thing that I wanted to really bring up that's relevant to today's businesses, and that really is the only thing that's constant here is change. And of course, landscapers next to us start their.
We are in the process of going through unprecedented change with a global health pandemic, and that has certainly disrupted many of our go-to-market strategies that we may have established at the beginning of the year. And that's why I think that what we're talking about here today is incredibly relevant. And there's one point that I wanted to add to the importance of fit and intent, and that's addressing the concept of risk. Right? And when you think about what organizations are dealing with today, they're experiencing massive disruption. Conferences have been canceled, so in-person sales meetings are no longer a viable option, right? It's starting to open up, but for right now and for the foreseeable future, it's not as easy to facilitate that. And COVID-19 has had a dramatic impact in stalling the economy and created massive uncertainty in marketing strategies as they were originally planned, as well as budget and spend capacity for businesses today. And you can't discount that as a seller or as a marketer or as an operations person within any B2B businesses. You can see this consistently, regardless of where you are, what industry you're in, there has been massive impact. And so this disruption is really force organizations change their approach. To not just focus on growing revenue, but also to protect the profitability of their business. And the insights that are required to overcome these challenges, they're not really readily available. Obviously, sales and marketers marketing is impacted because their budgets are being reduced. Sales pipelines are full of uncertainty because what you thought was, a pretty solid opportunity, you have no idea what budget impact is going on within that business. So you need to find a way to identify those at-risk accounts, not only when they're in pipeline, but then also post-acquisition or post-customer acquisition on the collections process, because that's going to put increasingly higher pressure on the profitability of the revenue that you're generating. So when you think about this economic uncertainty, it demands that you have to increase the number of components that you look at. So, fit and intent are obviously strategically important. Identifying the right accounts, unmasking where they are in the sales cycle by seeing how and what they're engaging with. But you also have to now factor in risk. And you have to look at the industries that they're in, how they've been impacted, the geographies that those businesses are in, and what the potential impact that's going to have on their budget, and use that as a consideration criteria to say, maybe we don't want to invest in marketing into this specific industry right now. Maybe we save those dollars. Maybe we have to do more with less, and you make those decisions when you look at the three components of fit, intent, and risk. And so for the purposes of today's call, Tim and I really are going to focus on fit and intent. And but I did want to, I felt like it would be, remiss of us to not bring this in. D&B does have a capability to do a pipeline health scan for you. So, there's information that you can come to us and we'll actually review what accounts are in your pipeline and give you risk scores associated with those accounts related to COVID-19 economic impact. So that's a free offering that's out there. So if you're listening and you have any interest in that, please, reach out to us and we can facilitate that conversation. But beyond that, I do want to hand things off to Tim right now so we can really start looking into, fit and what does that mean and how can you enhance your insights into the markets and the accounts that mean the most to you. Tim?
Thank you, Sean. I'm looking to hear further about how intent and opportunity signals can signal a buyer interest or motion to fuel sales and marketing activities. But for me, intent is only part of the answer. And to be truly relevant within a client mind, we have to understand why the individual is interested in a product first, vendor, or topic. My question, do they already use the technology? Is the technology in their infrastructure stack? And is there a fit for your solution? Understanding these to bring a context to the intent is absolutely critical. So it's critical that we understand that winning in today's market isn't solely about lead identification and volume. It's actually about making sure that every sales and marketing engagement we do is relevant and effective. This is because today we're competing more than ever for attention in the crowded market and in a customer environment that has very distinct challenges that we need to engage with. However, as vendors, we're doing this more and more with constrained and distributed resources. We're also competing in this current market for relevance. Knowing what sales play to lead with and when to maximize client engagement and minimize wasted activities is critical. The reason for a buyer motion is different based on the decision that needs to be taken. And what about the fact that we often need to lead the buyer to make a change? Does the buyer know that he has, for example, vendor sprawl in his infrastructure, inefficient architecture choices, or obsolete technologies at the core of his network? Identifying opportunities within this environment requires an understanding of your customer like never before. And on top of that, opportunities are emerging through transformation activities. The landscape is constantly changing. Today's infrastructures are changing at pace as organizations shift to the cloud, undertake digital transformation, extend their outsourcing activities, or fight to support the new paradigm of now a mass distributed workforce. Transformational activities, however, present opportunities for new and significant client investment dollars, often disrupting established vendors and the status quo within an account, and can significantly change infrastructure stacks within the customer. Be aware that this can identify risks and opportunities alike if you're an incumbent, and knowing this is of equal importance. Opportunities then, for me, are abundant, now more than ever. But how do you identify and engage with them in an effective manner? Before I turn to discussing how HG Insights is providing a solution for the market to this challenge, it's worth framing it through the real questions we get from our clients every day. And I'll broadly paraphrase this wide selection of questions into a single act. How do we maximize the effectiveness of every activity in an environment of change and constrained resources to better compete and grow our revenues? It's a huge challenge. The first step in the answer, of course, is you need to better understand your customers, their structure, their information stack, their vendor and product choices, and of course their history within your own organization. And Sean first introduced this by defining this as fit. As a first step in increasing sales and marketing activities and the effectiveness of them, enriching your data set and supporting your CRM and marketing stack is absolutely key. Once enriched, running sales and marketing motions can now be targeted more effectively. Think about how targeting the right companies based on what products they use, their industry location, or other success factor really supports the need to be relevant to the customer. Think also about how knowing your competitors' accounts make targeting much easier. So customer fit lies in profiling your customers and prospects by bringing together intelligence to know who, why, and with what message to target. But is there more? In a world of change, real opportunity value is hidden in the detail of the client. But getting to this detail sounds difficult, but it isn't. At HG Insights, we're helping clients large and small with this challenge, delivering intelligence on companies with insights on which technologies they use, how much they spend, and the sourcing relationships they have. We deliver reliable context so you can be relevant in all your engagements, but the sole purpose of driving revenue and driving resource effectiveness. We do all this by analyzing over 6 billion public and non-public documents using leading-edge research processes, delivering unprecedented accuracy and coverage without bias, and ultimately producing granular intelligence on over 50 million installations worldwide on the technologies that matter within those client landscapes. And our clients depend daily on us for this. Today's market, then, really require a holistic approach, an extended approach to that base level we've discussed on the prior slide. So earlier on, I talked about the change in needs within clients. Transformation programs aren't about vendors or products, and at HG Insights, we take a holistic view of a company's IT and their organization environment. We profile company infrastructures and the products and vendors within them to provide real insight on much more than just which individual vendors or products the company uses. Think about how knowing which companies have duplicate, new, or aging technologies, which have established vendor partnerships, where the company might be on a transformation journey that will ultimately change that company's infrastructure in 3, 6 months, or even now. Think how knowing which adjacent technologies are changing or signaling new buyer motions. This is real fit. Identifying customers that have an emerging or future need that fits with your sales play or solution set. Think how you can, armed with such knowledge, increase the breadth and relevance of your sales plays and resultant campaign messaging. And what I'd like to do is to show you how a holistic approach works in practice and how it totally changes the context of an opportunity. So to achieve this, let's consider two companies, two example companies. Both are large banks. Both are in the same country, similar, and at a segment level have a similar fit for a top-level sales plan. They certainly might fit into the same segment of a market, banking, in the same region. Context, however, is everything. If you were a data center provider, as an example, your messaging to both would be very different. On one, you might lead with a latency argument, the other, a cost-saving message. Company B also has an immature cloud stack, so this also needs factoring into the equation, as this may change and enhance the cost argument. Think how knowledge of the customer's organization also helps, but also how an infrastructure view provides real insight that should be informing his sales plays today. As I say, context is everything, and HG Insights makes delivery of this easier by standardizing on DMB entities, and then via a number of tools allows for easy integration of this deep intelligence into your sales and marketing stack. And I ask, whether it's new clients, prospects, or all of you here, how many vendors are still doing top-level segment campaigns, believing themselves to be really relevant in the eyes of the buyer, especially at this time? The answer, as I know from when I asked the question, is a large majority still, but thankfully fewer once engaged with HG Insights. We're the only technology provider today that can provide views across company and infrastructures in this way, period. So I hear you say, I get this for execution activities, but what about earlier in our planning processes? Making sure that we place our resources in the right markets is key. Can you use this intelligence, for example, to inform the planning process also? We have that covered too. One of the benefits of having profiled companies globally at a subsidiary level is we're able to view companies within their market structures. Want to know who dominates a tech category in a very specific market, or where white space is for your sales plays, so that you can better plan and deploy your resources in the right way? No problem. We can tell you the size of the opportunity, compare it with another market, and then drill down the companies that make it up so you can align those territories. Then using the company's specific infrastructure attributes, you can then target them with the right activities. It's an unprecedented line of sight from market planning through to company execution. And it's about another example of how looking at a company's IT infrastructure can really open the door to much more opportunity value and much more effective activities and resources. And customers and prospects will absolutely love you for being relevant. So what does this look like in practice in an intelligence stack? Firstly, by using both URL structures and D&B numbers, we can map your internal data to the wealth of HG intelligence very quickly and run this alongside other data sources like intent and risk that you're hearing about from D&B today. Extending your marketing stack by including this infrastructure data, the ability to look across customers, this level of detail is key. Remember, context is everything and it drives engagement. And with this level of context, it allows you to be much more targeted with your campaigns, to broaden your sales plays, and really to be much more relevant to the customer at the point of engagement. And I challenge you to really think about how, today, if you cannot message to a customer's environment and needs, how can you effectively compete for relevance and intention? So to demonstrate this, about how taking a holistic view of a customer in their infrastructure is so important, I'm going to reflect on one of HG's customers, which is Citrix. And this company has dramatically transformed how they identify and engage with opportunities using HG Insights technology and company intelligence, along with intent, and also D&B Lattice workflow tools, delivering nearly 400% improvement in conversion of activities to opportunities, a 30% shorter sales cycle, 250% improvement in win rate, and a doubling of visible wallet share, all delivered by being relevant to the customer. And if that's not enough, more crucially, they've improved the effectiveness of their resources through these outcomes, minimizing wasted costs and freeing up capacity in their teams that was previously spent on wasted sales and marketing cycles. So how have they done this? Armed with the data on company infrastructures from HG Insights, they now run very targeted sales plays, in some instances over 50 sales plays that are relevant and timely. By broadening beyond simple compete campaigns, they now have improved relevance, engagement, and also created opportunities and a need in buyers that was previously hidden from both. My challenge to you is, how is the customer environment informing your engagement activities today? And with that, I'll hand over to Sean to pick up and really talk about how intent can now amplify this further.
Great. Thanks, Tim. I think your points, right, around, the context in which you're talking to them, right, it improves the relevancy. And it starts with a common understanding of who those customers are, right? And that helps inform where you're going to place your bets. Who are you going to go after? And when you start going after those accounts and you develop your sales plays and you develop your messaging, it has to be delivered, right? It has to have relevancy to that target audience, and there are ultimately people on the other end that you have to influence. And the added challenge there is when you start going to market is that there is more power on the buyer side now than there has ever been before, right? They have the ability to do self-guided customer journeys, right, to engage with vendors how and where and on what channel they choose to do that. They have the ability to source information from their peers through peer review sites, right? And most of the time, these buyers are choosing to delay their engagement with a seller until the point in which they are ready to engage. So how do you start to influence them? And I think that's where intent really comes in. And intent can help inform the timing of your campaign. and how and when you engage with those customers to start influencing them as they're going through their own self-guided journey. So at the point that they're ready to engage, you're at the top of their list. And so when you think about that, context increases relevancy, intent informs the timing in which you go to market. All of those things together combine to stronger engagement within the accounts that matter most to you. So when Tim talked about combining the HG data and the DUNS number and the technographics and the firmographics, this is really about systematizing data to ensure that you have a complete view of accounts, not only from existing customers to prospects, contacts that you already engage with, but leads within them, right? You need to have a way to consistently identify and identity resolution to avoid duplication, to create a single view of the customers, to bring in all of those different data elements that you utilize across the technology stack, the sales and MarTech stack that you use to engage with customers and prospects, and then use that as a way to inform how and who and where and what you're saying to those accounts. I think it's really, really critical to have a way, a process, a system in which you can create that single view of the customer and prospect. I think as I talked about earlier in the webinar, right, the social distancing that we're dealing with and now this digital anonymity that exists out there makes it really harder and harder to identify those in-market accounts. Speaking as a marketer and working with my sales team, we had a big bet on conferences and events this year. And as we got into March, all of those plans got completely disrupted. And so I think many sales and marketing professionals, especially in the B2B space, are trying to figure out how can I engage with greater relevance? How can I do more with the fewer marketing dollars that I may have? And we really feel that intent enables you to better prioritize from a sales and marketing perspective who you're going after. And when you actually influence those people that are in market, that's going to increase sales responsiveness. It's going to improve sales productivity because they're only focusing on the accounts that matter most and that are actively in market trying to work through it. So when I think about intent, right, it can help identify and progress opportunities faster. That's an obvious thing for us. It also allows you to focus marketing dollars more effectively. So, in the context of this, lead and account prioritization, account-based advertising and analytics, and account-based sales are three primary use cases where intent really, shines through with incredible value for organizations today. And, there are multiple approaches to identifying intent. D&B's intent models was just released in February, actually. We've been working with beta customers for a while, but we released this new product in February, and it takes a slightly different approach, right? There are topic-based intent models and providers out there that are based on a topic. They focus just on domains, and they look at a broad use of sources. Then there's research-based intent, which are content providers and publishers that have these walled gardens, can see who's looking at what and what content pieces they're looking at. So they provide that. Then D&B has taken a more personalized approach to intent, which is based off of your keywords that you use. And Tim talks about understanding the IT environments and which technologies are really important for you as a targeting criteria. You can take that focus, that strategy, and use that to help inform your intent models as well, to actually look at those organizations that are searching on that and which fit the exact criteria that you're using from a strategic go-to-market prioritization perspective. So we like to think of our approach as a little bit more personalized, a little more precise, and a little more intelligent because it is focused on what you specifically, what an individual business is trying to do. Right, target those buying locations and aggregate the family signals within a DUNS number. Right, a DUNS represents an entire organization which may have multiple child or subsidiary organizations underneath it. each of which may have their own buying and purchasing authority. So the ability to understand who those organizations are and where they exist within the corporate hierarchy are really, really important. And then finally, not only do we look at intent, but we look at where they are in the buying journey. So we have some unique proprietary processes that help us identify the type of content that a person is looking at to identify, is this an early stage or a late stage asset, to determine, what the immediacy of the need is at those organizations. So just a couple of details, and I'll try to move quickly here because I want to give time for questions and answers. When you look at domain-based targeting, it creates a view of each individual location, each individual subsidiary is the same. And that's not really the case, right? If you want to have better utilization of your funds, you can target by specific locations that are showing intent, right? I want to go after an individual geographic location. We also have the ability to say which of these locations have buying authority, right? Is there a concentration of commerce coming out of that location? Do we see a high propensity or a high concentration of senior level executives at a specific location, which may indicate decision-making authority, right? Or I could be looking at just headquarters that are showing intent. So depending on who and what you're trying to do, being able to have that visibility into the DUNS number and the corporate hierarchies, and then being able to layer on the technographic data, layer on the intent data on top of that, is going to help focus your dollars and going to help increase the conversion rates and the relevancy, and ideally the engagement you get from your sales and marketing efforts. So one point on the buying journey here, right? There's one thing you look at intent. Yes, are they searching on these topics? Are they out there looking? That's great, right? Where are they in the journey helps improve that relevancy of what you put in front of them. So, we use natural language processing, we use AI and analytics and machine learning to actually look at the billions of web pages and content pieces that are out there and determine, based off of the models that we have, like I said, is this a thought leadership piece, so early on in the buyer's journey, or is this a speeds and feeds comparison case study about a specific product that indicates, hey, someone's in the decisioning phase and they're really looking deep into what it makes up, what are the key components of this product. So we'll look at that and use kind of the two scores in combination to help inform, right, the right intent. Right, so not only get in early, identify those individuals that are on. You can create brand impressions, or if they're later in the cycle, they haven't engaged with you yet. How can I shorten that sales cycle? Right, Tim talked about Citrix and their ability to shorten the sales cycle. Really, really important, and that comes with relevancy and timing to create that engagement. And then, of course, you can't forget the fit. Right, we talked about the technographic information, really being able to help improve your understanding of the markets you're operating in, of the target audiences you're going after, and how do you create messaging and positioning of your products that are relative. Is it a competitive takeout campaign? Is it a fast follow to key technologies? Is it an understanding of how things are evolving, or as Tim talked about, legacy systems in place and the need for digital transformation and modern practices to be in there? All of those things can be taken into context and delivering a much stronger message for your customers. So I think one of the key things here, right, you got to make it available. Right? We talk about systematizing data. It starts in the CRM. It starts with those analytic systems. But for sellers, right, you got to put it at their fingertips. You got to be able to embed this information within the tools that they're using every day, so they get notifications, so that they can understand where I want to focus. How do I prioritize my lead follow-up and my outbound prospecting efforts? And by giving them those intent signals into those systems, by giving them the insight into what the right positioning is relative to the IT stack that exists within those systems, just makes those sellers much more on point when they actually do get someone to pick up that line. So just to kind of summarize here, and I think I want to hand things off to Tim. We'll kind of, handle things, together jointly here. I think that a key point is to look at the customer holistically. And Tim, I think you've got some key points that I think are really important to emphasize here.
Thanks, Sean, and a great closer on intent. So as we look at the customer holistically, I can't stress this enough. The need now, in the first wave, organizations would start by looking at a single technology, would look at a single vendor. They want to compete or take out campaign. In today's market, relevance requires, and change is happening at the infrastructure level. There are often unseen changes that can be seen when you look at the infrastructure and what's going on across the wider technology stack. So the large majority of our customers now are broadening the number of technologies within the data set to extend beyond single tactical campaigns, to really start seeing how they can enrich their sales plays with much more complicated attribute selection, and making that available by either looking at the whole infrastructure or a subset of the infrastructure in the areas which are relevant, but ensuring that that drives relevance and engagement, which is absolutely critical. And using that and understanding the customer environment to really help form those new ideal customer profile definitions, and that's absolutely key. And what we've now moved into, because the biggest ask from customers who are used to traditional methods of planning, great, here's a market size, but now what do I do with it? Actually using this data to fundamentally input into their market planning and their territory planning to really understand where are the opportunities. Now I understand the ICP. Now I understand where I'm relevant. Where are we not? Where is the white space? Where do we need to focus? And that foundational data fed across the sales and marketing series of activities from planning to engagement is what drives about the transformational change in the results you've seen. So broadening that across the range of technology attributes, but also broadening that to include, as we've heard, at the execution level, that intent, but also to include how you bring in spend intelligence to really size those opportunities. So I want to know every client is different. So getting a view of what their budgetary spend is, which we profile, as well as their infrastructure landscape, provides an even deeper context. And that's very important if we're going to be relevant to be able to look at, okay, I've got an intent signal, I've got a view around this customer environment. Where is he in his buying motion? What might change? And how do I size that? Is that to help prioritize that opportunity in your activities? So looking at this holistically, and then through this systemized data, collection of data, is absolutely critical. And Sean, do you talk more about that systemization of the data? Because I think that's absolutely critical, and it's one of the reasons why we chose and put D&B at the heart of our entity model to really support this process.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it is, data is complex, and I talked about that volume, variety, and velocity of that data coming in from multiple touch points. And, it becomes that much harder to create that single view. And, we rely so much on the DUNS numbers, and our customers do as well, to help create and facilitate an easy way of incorporating additional data sets, right? When you can identify the account and understand and then pull in those additional insights from the different data providers, it just makes everything that you do more effective, more efficient, and have a higher engagement level as well. And I think it goes into that next point of when you take a personalized, a precise and intelligent approach, using intent data, but just using data in general, it's going to improve the timing of how you go to market, of the focus of your spend when you go to market, and then ultimately the relevancy and engagement levels that you'll be able to generate, because you're much more thoughtful, and those on the receiving end of your message will immediately see the value that you can offer and help solve for some of the key problems that they had.
Yeah, sorry, Sean. I know this is one of the questions
go ahead.
from one of the audience members already. I'm just drawing it out, which is how easy is it to bring these additional insights into a marketing stack? And I think one of the common mistakes that I've seen, it's perhaps not a mistake, but an evolution as the people are getting more mature in data use within their marketing stack, is they will bring in data assets that may well be for a tactical campaign or a particular tactical activity. But the reason why HG uses put D&B at the core is obviously the ease of integration, but also the fact that because it's a global data set and HG profiles infrastructures across global companies, the benefit is whether you engage on a local market or you extend that into regional markets or look globally, the ability to either use the same data set at a tactical level or at a strategic level, but at a corporate level as you scale, is absolutely important. Otherwise, what we do is we proliferate the hairballs within the marketing stack, within the customer data environment. And so getting to a foundational approach where an integrated approach where it makes it very, very simple to plug in other data assets, but around a standard, and we've certainly chosen that approach, and I know others have, makes it much, much easier to bring this into the client environment, but also then to mobilize other data sets around that in time.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I did, so please, if there are any questions, we've got some questions coming in. So, please ask the questions if you on the Q&A button on the screen here. I did want to advance to the slide that, I mentioned the free pipeline health scan report to identify risk. We also have a free account engagement report, which is focused on intent. So if you can, this is pretty simple. You provide about, some of the keywords that you're using in your SEO strategy, and we'll build a personalized model for you. And then we'll give you a summary report to help you see what accounts are actively in market for those specific terms. It's a free offering that we have there. So I encourage you to use that link below and go there and request an engagement report and learn more about the intent data. But Tim, there's a question here that is kind of related to what we were just talking about, and it came in and says, intent is the latest trend in marketing. Certainly, it's a hot topic. I will agree with that. Is it more important than understanding a client's fit to my solution? So I'll let you start on that, and I have my own thoughts as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think fundamentally it's about depth of relevance. And of course, if you're building out a campaign based upon particular personas or individuals who might be interested in a particular solution, of course, you can run with intent alone. However, building that out to really understand the client fit and segmenting that. So we do this, we have an audience solution, a digital audience solution, for example, and being able to manage your costs, your campaigns, your activities, making sure that you target just the companies that you want to talk to, and then, of course, in combination with intent, the personas that you want to talk to. By using the combination, you get the ultimate solution. Of course, I would say, not being an intent provider today, that fit is absolutely critical as a base component, because understanding the client environment is critical to build your sales plays. But then the obvious question that follows is, now I know where I'm targeting, who do I talk to? And then the value of intent really comes alive.
I completely agree. I have virtually the same answer, but you were way more eloquent than I was, Tim. So I do agree, like that the sizing of the market, the identification of the opportunities and where you want to spend your money, and then how do you is absolutely the foundation for everything that you do. And then intent allows you to say, okay, where am I going to place my bets? I only have X dollars in my budget. how am I going to spend that most efficiently? And the two things really go hand in hand, especially today when everybody's going digital. From a B2B perspective, I know as offices open up, that may open up the opportunity for more direct mail components, but for the most part, people are operating in a digital world right now, and you got to be able to identify those intent signals and who you want to focus on. We are running out of time. There's one final question, Tim. Here, I'll cue this up for you. You did make a point, and I was actually, interested to learn about this. It says, why do you say that HG Insights is the only vendor that can provide a company's infrastructure, or can profile a company's infrastructure? Sorry, I misread that.
Not at all. Look, one of the dangers when we talk about technology intelligence is people immediately think list buy, and list buy is getting lists. All of us every day get pinged by list providers selling, hey, we know SAP sites. I'm sure we get them in our inbox every day. I certainly do. Ironically, people trying to sell me them, which I find quite amusing. But the one thing that is different with HG is at a global scale, without bias, HG has spent tens of millions of dollars to build a method to be able to really understand client infrastructures behind the firewall. Not the web scraping, hey, this company uses Adobe, but literally the full infrastructure stack. And we do that by analysis of over 6 billion documents, okay, which at any time, it's very easy to spend a lot of time in going through it, but doing that and then mapping that on a global scale to a global entity structure of D&B allows us to really get on a global scale to really be able to map out those client infrastructures, not just at the HQ or the decision HQ, but across right the way down into the children and subsidiaries. And so understanding fit, but also fit and where to target from the point of view of where that customer buying decision is and what that technology motion or change where that will occur and what it will be, that requires a very, very different approach to a lot of the companies that talk about, hey, we provide technology, compete lists or similar. And there are many of them. It's fundamentally different, and I urge the audience to take some time and look at what HG offers.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Tim, if anybody has any extra questions for Tim or myself, we are out of time. You can see our contact information here. We both encourage you to reach out and be proactive here. We're happy to continue this conversation with anybody here. Tim, thank you very much for your time and your insights into this market. I hope everybody here found this valuable, and I appreciate the time and effort everybody took to come and hear this today. Have a great day, and stay safe, please.
Thank you all.